Hey, this is Seth Peek with Peek Realty and Peek Painting in Atascadero. I'm here with my good friend Dylan Linnenkamp. He's the owner operator at Harper Homes Home Inspections, our favorite home inspector. And welcome here, Dylan. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Seth. It's good to chat with you this morning.
Yeah, for sure. So, I want to lead off this. We're going to talk about home inspections and the need for, the importance of doing them as even getting ready for a listing. But I wanted to talk about a story you just told me about one of your inspections where you found a leak in a shower pan.
Yeah. So, on every home inspection, I use an infrared camera, which is a really high tech, expensive piece of equipment. Not all home inspectors use them, but the value of it really, it's just, it's something I am adamant that I take out on every home inspection because in this particular instance, there was a shower above the kitchen. It was a 3-story type condo. And you could see that it wasn't quite visible on the drywall yet. There was a tiny bit of bubbling, but I did my whole inspection. I took out the infrared camera. That's usually the last thing I do after I've ran the water and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, you can see the big cold spot right there. Because what happens is when you have a leak, the water leaks and it cools and you get evaporative cooling. So it shows up as a cold spot. And so, sure enough, it shows up on my infrared camera. I get my moisture meter on it, verify, oh, yeah, it's wet and it's right above the kitchen is right where the shower is, and so there was a leak in the shower pan, and so they had to have the plumbers come and cut the drywall open. There had to be mold remediation, and I mean that would have been something otherwise that probably would have gone completely missed until down the road where the damage started to get bad enough you started to see it on the drywall.
So when you have the infrared camera like that, do you? I think I lost you. Are you there?
What was that? Sorry, Seth. Yeah,
I
sorry
think I
about that. What
lost
was
you
that?
for a minute. I lost you for a minute. So with the infrared, are you using that like throughout the whole house or only when you suspect something? Are you kind of just
No,
going through the house?
Yeah, I use it throughout the whole house. Kind of my process is when I'm running the HVAC system,
Mhm.
I use that to check all the registers, heat distribution, cooling if there's an AC unit. And then while I'm doing that and checking the distribution, then that's also where I'm scanning walls, I'm scanning ceilings, those kind of things. So it's kind of, a 2-for-1 in that instance. Or if there's a suspect area, I see a little bit of staining, or specifically I know, hey, there's a bathroom up here. I want to check that ceiling right below for those kind of reasons.
Awesome, very cool. It's one of the reasons why we love using you. You always have like the state of the art equipment and everything like that. But I wanted to jump on here because not everybody when they're getting ready to sell their house, they're not thinking that a listing inspection. So like a home inspection generally is commonly known by our buyers as something they have to do when they buy a home in the during the contingency period. But I always steer our sellers to get a listing inspection because it'll either number one, right? It'll um, reduce the mystery when someone's putting an offer in the house. The owners already know like what's going on with the house. Maybe they can take care of it before the house goes on the market. And number two, it just gives a little bit more peace of mind that what they know what they're selling and they know how the state of everything is. Do you find that number one, uh, a lot of listing agents are doing it, and number two, why they should? Uh, any insight as to that?
No, 100%. So that's actually something that I've seen a huge uptick in the last few years. A huge influence of that actually was COVID with the Bay Area buyers. So up in the Bay Area, that's a very standard operating procedure is pre-listing inspections. It's something very common that's done more often than not up there. And so when I was dealing with some of the buyers agents up there and buyers, they were shocked. They were like, wait, why don't you guys have inspections already? Like, what do you mean? Like, we want to know what we're putting an offer in on. And so that's something that I think influenced some of the agents down here to start doing. And I think people, especially agents, really started seeing the value of it because, the way we do the home buying process is kind of a little bit backwards. You make an offer, you negotiate on a price. You come to that conclusion and then you investigate, have these contingencies, and then you kind of go back to the negotiating table after stuff's found. So you're kind of
Right,
adding that extra step instead of, hey, here's everything that's wrong with the house
right.
and make your offer accordingly. And we're either going to fix X, Y, and Z, or we're not going to fix any of it. And so it really just kind of eliminates that extra step. That way you don't have houses falling out of escrow. I can't tell you how many times a house falls out of escrow because there's a huge foundation issue that pops up that was unaware, or a roof, or whatever the case may be. And so it also just, I find the successful agents that do that have a much quicker, and less days on market, because the house is just moved, because they're not having it fall out of escrow and extending escrow. They just start preloading everything. So when it hits the market, it's ready to go. And like you mentioned too, Seth, of just having the seller knowing what's wrong with the home. It also is kind of like an extra layer of protection, because it
Mhm.
shows the level of due diligence. You
Right.
have your seller's disclosures, but by doing that inspection, it kind of shows, hey, we are trying to disclose everything that we're aware of.
For sure, for sure. And it doesn't negate the fact that as a buyer, even if there's already a pre-listing inspection and some things that were taken care of or some maybe weren't, to still have a buyer's inspection, because it could be, it's like you go to a doctor, you get diagnosed with like something, serious or non-serious, and you want to go get a second opinion. A second inspector might catch something different. Maybe you have that infrared camera, the first one didn't. Maybe you have a sewer scope, the first one didn't. You have these other opinions. Maybe like recently we had a transaction where the first inspector said the HVAC system wasn't working properly, right? And then I had an HVAC guy come out and say, "Oh, it's working just fine." Then you came out and did your buyer inspection for us, and you're like, "Yeah, it seems to be operating." So it's like if you just go off of one opinion, sometimes there might be a mistake, or something might have been faulty at the time, and then there's no record that it was fixed, but it could be rectified, or it could be worse, or there could be something that you never knew, like a shower pan leak or something like that, right?
No, 100%. That's the other thing. Buyers, they can always get a second opinion or two. A lot of times I'll come back and do a walkthrough with the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And, if anything was repaired, I'll check those. So sometimes people will hire me for a reinspection. So they're like, hey, the seller said X, X, and X was done. Can you just go back through, kind of walk us through everything, and then let us know, hey, yeah, this was a problem, but it's
Right.
been repaired and
Mm-hmm.
addressed as well. So that's always an option too.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on for this quick chat. One more piece of advice I always give our listing clients is always get a pre-listing inspection, and you're the one that we have do it. So we always appreciate it when they say yes, we call you and you do it for us, and you always take care of us here at Peak Realty. And I appreciate you, Dylan.
Appreciate you, Seth, and all the business. And yeah, no, thanks for having me on. Like I said, I think pre-listing inspections are definitely the way the market's going, and I think in the next 5 years we're going to start to see that really be kind of the standard. So definitely great that you guys are kind of ahead of the curve there. So
Well, thanks, Dylan, and I'll see you later, most likely. See you
thanks,
later,
Seth.
man.
Good to see you.
You too.